I have 8 random numbers here. You'll just pick 3 of them, and then whatever questions they correspond to, that is where we begin.
Got it.
What is your first number of 8?
2.
2 is a theater camp inspired question. I want to know, what is the strangest thing you've ever put in your special skills section on a headshot resume?
So funny. I think, oh God, I feel like I lied so much in the beginning. I think I said I was a drummer once because I really wanted to be in this like girl band musical. And yeah, drumming's really hard. And then there was they were like, okay, great, you can come to the drumming audition. And I bailed before. It's not that exciting, but I was like, I can't drum. I'm not going to publicly drum for you.
All right, we are up to your second pick. What's your second number?
4.
You sound so like uncertain when you select the number. You got another safe one. This is also a theater camp inspired question. I want to know, what is your favorite summer camp movie? That is not theater camp.
Ooh, God. I mean, I love The Parent Trap. It's such a good movie. But also, I really like the documentary, it's very sad, but Jesus Camp, which we were inspired by a lot of the imagery of the kids. There's like a blackout and they use all these flashlights, and we stole that idea for our film. Obviously, tonally very different pieces, but that's a really compelling documentary.
All right, you have one last pick. What is your final number?
Oh, God, 8.
This is called high-low. Can you give me one audition high, but then I also want one audition low and what you learned from it that you were able to apply to future auditions?
Oh, God. Audition high, audition low. Okay, what will forever be my audition high was that I grew up in Los Angeles. I grew up going to the Groundlings, saw Melissa McCarthy perform live, and then I got to audition in person with her for Life of the Party. And we improvised a scene, and it was just like the most magic moment of my life. And even if I didn't get the job, it would have been like a profound moment. And she was so giving as a scene partner, even in the audition. And I look up to her so much. So that was definitely a high. I have so many lows, Perry. It's hard to choose from. God, what was a specific low? I mean, a really hard one was one time for a screen test. Like, I got to the end of an audition for like this bigger Netflix show when like Netflix was just starting, and they had given me the wrong sides. Like, so I had I get there and they're like, okay, do you have the breakfast scene? And I was like, no, I have this river scene or something. And they were like, well, we're not doing the river scene. We're doing the breakfast scene. You have 2 minutes to look at this. And I'm dyslexic. And so I was looking at it, and then I go in and I'm reading opposite the actor for the screen test. And I think I like completely spoke in like enough, for speaking of other languages, I made up a language, like bombed it in a way where people are like, it's, wow, you like, you did words. Like, they didn't know what to say, and it was horrible. And then that show obviously went on to be hugely, see, I can't speak, hugely successful. But it was now I look back on it and it's funny.
What is up, everyone? Welcome back for a brand new edition of Collider Ladies Night. I am so excited to get to celebrate Theater Camp, which is wonderful, a delight, you must watch it, and also the work of Molly Gordon, not just Theater Camp, but you have so much that we need to celebrate today, and I'm very excited to do it right now.
Thank you. Well, we also need to celebrate you. Everyone needs to be celebrated today.
What is the movie, the performance, personal experience, you name it, that first made you say to yourself, I absolutely have to be an actor?
I mean, my dad showed me The Graduate when I was like 11, which I did not understand the kind of what was going on between an older woman and a younger man. I didn't understand that, but I understood the visual language of it, and like just like that shot of him in the pool and the shot through the aquarium, and like I was just so taken with like how beautiful it was. And I also was like dancing around a lot to Paul Simon at the time. And I was like, this is so cool. What is this? What is this? Like, and he was like, this is a movie. And I was so like, oh my God, I want to be inside of this. And so I don't want to be inside of that dynamic. I didn't understand it, but I was so, just like, it was so electric. And I just knew that I wanted to live inside of something like that.
I love that you were so aware of that part of filmmaking at that point. Now it's making me wonder, do you remember the very first time that you were on a professional set and like everything around you melted away and you were just fully in like a character or a story where you didn't notice like the gigantic crew around you, but like it was just fully in the moment and focused to an extent that maybe you had never experienced before?
The experience I had on Shiva Baby, because it was we were all on top of each other. We were in a very hot house in Brooklyn. That movie was made for $200,000 and we're all on top of each other. The crew is in a small space. And when Rachel and I did our first scene together, everything melted away. Like I didn't care how hot I was. I couldn't tell that we were all on top of each other. I just felt so connected and locked in with her. And it's like, that's the magic of movies.
I wanted to bring up Animal Kingdom, and I have two questions about that. First, because that is so different than a lot of the other work you've delivered since. When you are working on that show, is it ever a conversation where like, I am worried Hollywood is going to do that thing where they box me into this and restrict me from jumping back into the comedy roles that I love and really want to do more of?
Yeah, I mean, it was so funny because that was my first job, my first real job, and it was kind of so unlike me as a human that I kind of was excited because I was worried I was more going to get put in a box of the comedy girl, and I really, some of my favorite shows are so much darker than you would think, and so I enjoyed that, But yeah, right around that time, I got the Melissa McCarthy movie, and that was like such a great moment because also I didn't want to just live in like this heavy like male surfing world for forever. I wanted to have some levity, and with everything that I do, I want to bring humor, even like a darker piece. And I think I was like a funny juxtaposition in that show because everything was so intense, and then I think I would even be told by the directors, like, you don't need to make this funny, like it's serious, but I always try to make everything a little bit funny. Also, just working on a TV show is like the dream film school, the pace, the different directors that come in. So you get to learn from so many different kinds of people, and you also like really make a family. And I feel like I learned so much like as an actor and also as like a director now from that experience. But yeah, it's hard when you get like kind of put in a box for a specific thing. I feel like I'm trying to crawl out of boxes all the time.
I love talking about the idea of breaking out in this industry because from the outsider perspective, it can be entirely different than what the person experiencing the breakout actually went through. So before I can even ask you my question, I have to ask, what is the title that you consider your breakout role in the industry?
Oh my God. I don't think I feel so lucky to just have another job. So I don't like think of anything that way. I think getting to be a part of things that people actually watch is new for me. Like I think getting to be on The Bear and, a lot of times it's like, oh, I didn't catch that. Or I watched it on a plane. Like, so to get to be on something that's so in the zeitgeist is so cool. And I feel very lucky to be a part of that.
I love that. When I Google your name and the word breakout, I feel like literally everything. It's like the Booksmart breakout star. Like literally every single thing you've done. But if you're going to use The Bear as your example, can you give me maybe one example of something that has changed for the better, doors that have opened because of The Bear and its popularity, but then also what is something that's more of a misconception about what it means to break out in Hollywood?
Yeah, I mean, I think a job doesn't lead to another job. Like it's you kind of, yes, people are more aware of you, but it's kind of this clean slate every single time you go into, an audition or a self-tape. Like they might, have seen you in something that they liked, but also they have a vision of what the character is and you just might not fit that. That's the biggest thing I had to just like sit with. I'm now like 10 years into this career. Like, oh, it's just so not about me. And especially auditioning kids on our movie, like they would be amazing and they would just be not how we envisioned the character. And sometimes they wouldn't be, but they would totally switch our idea of it and we want them to be in it. But a lot of times it's just not, it's just not in your hands. And that rejection has gotten easier as I've gotten older.
It's such a hard thing to process. One of my most recent guests had mentioned that when she first started out, she did a 2-week internship at a casting director's office. And that was the big takeaway, that behind closed doors, sometimes those decisions are all about, do they fit the role the way they envision it? And do they pair well with the other actors cast? And it has nothing to do with what you delivered. Nothing whatsoever.
No, it kind of, but that's life, right? It's like life has other plans for everything. You just can't control anything, and you got to let go, which I don't know how to do. So I need to learn.
I feel your pain. I think I suffer from that quite a bit as well. All right. You bring up directing kids. So that's the first thing I want to ask you about with theater camp. What is something you wanted to do for your youngest actors on that set that you would have liked to have had more of when you were first starting out on your first professional sets as an actor?
I mean, the hardest thing when getting this movie financed was that no one could believe that kids could improvise. And I always just had this strong gut reaction that they would be so much better than us because they're so free and uninhibited. And also, like, you can throw something out at them like, hey, why don't you try this? And they're not thinking, oh, they didn't like what I just did. Like, they haven't gotten jaded and self-conscious as if they've gotten older. Like, they're just free and happy to be there. And they just showed up and were absolutely brilliant and improvised around us. But it was because we didn't like baby them like kids. We treated them like adults with such care and made sure that they felt comfortable fully through it. But I think I've been on sets where the kid gets so babied, and I think they, I don't know. I think they want to be treated like professionals, and they all just wanted to be a part of this ensemble and really feel a part of it and have a seat at the table. And I just feel so lucky that I got to work with so many amazing children.
They are exceptional. I feel like it's not easy, especially in the middle of an ensemble of so many like experienced heavyweights, to be able to take, smaller roles, so to speak, and make them stand out and feel like real humans while also doing the improv. And they managed to do it all, which is very impressive.
Yeah, they're like absolutely extraordinary. This new generation of kids like are so much more informed and in themselves, and I felt like I learned so much, and I want to be like them when I'm older. Like they're just very it's a very special group, and yeah, it also was just really important to me that their like parents felt really comfortable and safe, and like that I developed a relationship with them from the beginning too, and that they felt a part of it. So then they also could give us space to really just like connect with their kids. And I feel so lucky that they allowed me to do that. And I know that can be a complicated thing. So I feel very lucky.
For sure. Looking back on some of your past experiences as an actor working with directors, is there any particular past director you've worked with that you found their approach influencing your own approach to the work most, I guess?
I mean, Chris Storer, the director of The Bear and the creator, I worked with him on Ramy about 5 years ago, and I worked only 3 days on that show, but it was like the most special experience. I like have always dreamed of returning back to that home. And he treats every member of the crew like they're the most important person there. The caterer, the hairdresser, the actor, every single person. And everyone's so excited to be at work. And I think people don't realize that, but actually, most people on film sets are not happy to be there. And I think that's been a sad thing I've discovered. Like, wait, we have our dream jobs. And everyone's like, ugh, when are we done? And everyone just so wanted to show up to Ramy and show up to The Bear. And yeah, I really tried to do that on our film, which, which I made with 4 people. So it was like a collective. And I wanted every crew member to feel a part of that collective, and every cast member, as well as the children. And I think, we had 19 days and it was chaotic and crazy, but everyone wanted to be there, which is something that I'm proud that we were able to pull off.
I love talking about the actor-coach relationship. Can you maybe name a teacher or a coach you've had and, explain why they made a big impression on you and why the techniques that they use best aligned with how you like to, absorb and apply the notes that you're learning?
Yeah, my high school theater teacher, Davida, was so special, so spiritual, which I took some of that for Rebecca Diane. But she would use every part of our acting class. There was also an element of giving back, and we would basically in a way to also understand who we were playing and I guess it's in a way like where we could also have a deeper understanding of the characters we were playing. But every play that we would take on would have some element of giving back to the community. And I just think like that's so beautiful because acting is a very self-involved job. And she just made it clear that like, you don't want to be that type of person. And being an actor is also, you want to be a curious person. You don't want to be so me. You want to take in the world and pick up things and go, oh, do I want to put this into my next character or this thing? And it's like, you want to collect all these things along the way, but you also don't want to just be in a community of actors. You want to like be in the world. And I've really tried to keep that going in my life. But I love that. Like she didn't have to do that. And she changed all of our lives and our perspective.
That is one of the best answers to that question I've ever heard. I wish every single set out there would adopt that same practice and mentality.
I agree.
Ugh.
I agree.
I did want to go back to the idea of financing a feature film like Theater Camp. I'm curious. So you have this dream, you want to make this movie. Do you remember the first thing that happened that made that dream feel like it was within reach? Like a person you met or like a resource you acquired that made you all think like, yup, we're really going to do it now?
When Jessica Elbaum, who runs Will Ferrell's company, agreed to be a part of it, we were like, oh, this is like a professional person. Like this is a real thing. And I had done Booksmart with Jess and she took me to lunch and was like, you keep staying late when you're done shooting, like, and watching things. And I can tell that you want more. And I want you to always feel like you can come to me if you have any projects or anything you want to talk about. So we brought her Theater Camp, and when she signed on, it was still a climb. And a lot of people said no, because again, it was an improvised movie with children and first-time directors and all this stuff. But it felt like, someone with good taste is at least not saying that we're horrific. So that's good.
I'm sure there are many answers to this question, but because I'll always take an opportunity to talk about Booksmart, when you were staying late on that set, is there, I don't know, any specific memory that you still hold especially tight to, like something you observed that you didn't expect and is now influencing your own work further?
God, so many things. I loved being a part of that project. I mean, Olivia also created, like, you want to create a vibe on set where people want to like hang out, where people want to be there. And we had a lot of that big like parties scenes and all the extras there. She also made everyone feel like, oh, I really want to be here because there's music playing and there's a food truck and all this stuff. Like people have to stay so late with no money. And she really treated everyone beautifully. And I was very inspired by that. But also I think I stayed late to watch Beanie do that like dance surrealist scene. And I got to watch the rehearsals and then watch them pull that off. And I was like really thrilled and inspired by that. But I loved that experience.
I adore that entire movie. That is one of the best scenes in the entire film.
It's so good. And like we've all been there, of like been lost in our mind and then like we're brought back to reality.
That is such a special film. Back to Theater Camp, a personal question inspired by Rebecca Diane's journey in the film. What is something in your career that maybe you loved doing, but came to realize that sticking to it might be holding you back? Like a new step or a step forward that might have been scary to take because it was leaving your comfort zone. But when you did it, you realized it was a new, exciting opportunity that could help you continue to grow.
I mean, I think I had written all of this material and I just hadn't showed it to anybody because I think what holds most people back is just fear of failure. And all you have to do is be brave enough to fail. And if you fail, look, you might not make anything else or you'll try again and you'll learn from that experience. But just first, like starting to send out my material and take myself seriously as a writer was like a huge shift for me because I had done so much in private. Like I feel like I'm like a private more creative person or something. And actually working on Shiva Baby and watching girls my age be so unapologetically themselves and ambitious and knowing that I wanted that too, but I was like doing it more privately was like a really big shift for me.
Okay. Hopefully theater camp changes that forever going forward. More writing, producing, directing from you. A broader question that I love asking. I was just talking to Noah and I hadn't asked this question in so long, and it's one of my favorite. You've just worked with so many incredible co-stars over the years. Can you name someone who has a very similar approach to the work, where the second you hit set, the two of you were immediately in sync? But then I want the opposite. I want someone with a very different approach that challenged you to adapt and maybe try something new and for the better.
Ooh, God, that's such a good question. Well, oh God, I got to work with Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who is my favorite actress on the planet, creative, brilliant, human, kind. She's perfect. And she studies comedy in a profound way. Like, she is free and off the cuff and improvs, but also like it is so physical and in her body, and she'll find the bit and it's like inside of her and practice it and bounce it off of you before she does it. It's like, it kind of felt like she was like a gymnast of comedy or like a ballet dancer. And I was so inspired by that, that kind of preparation and really kind of physical comedy that I'm still trying to work on. Like I love a little bit more of the like off the cuff, like improv, but I don't always like go for the like practice physical comedy. And that's what she is so good at. And I was so inspired by, and I worked with her before theater camp and like tried to bring a little bit of that. But I will never even touch anything that she's able to do. And then someone that I was like, I mean, that is so a lot of people. I feel, working with Ramy a couple years ago, like we have a similar kind of freedom and wanting to kind of just be available to the other actor and let's just see what happens. I think I love to prepare, but I also love throwing everything out the window and just being present with another person. And he's like that. So that was a really cool experience.
I'm rooting for you and all the people that you often work with. I love you guys so much.
Thank you. You're such an incredible interviewer.